Today, I'm very excited that we have this podcast called Water Matters. We're going to talk about water. We're going to focus a lot about Bangalore city, but I'm sure a lot of these learning are going to be for across the country. My name is Sriram Kuchimanchi. I run a company called Smarter Dhamma, which is focused on urban sustainability and urban challenges with regards to climate change. I'm very excited to talk to Pavitra here. She is honest about the fact that what I know and what I do not know. I'm willing to seek advice and support to ensure that she does the right thing always. I love that about her. Pavitra, welcome.
Thank you, Sriram. That's a really nice and kind introduction. So thanks so much. And water matters. When I'm thinking about Bangalore, and this is hometown for me, I was born in Mysore, but I pretty much grew up in Bangalore. I went away for a while, but I came back to Bangalore. So I can pretty much say I'm a Bangalore person. I'm a Bangalore girl. I love this city. And I'm also one of those people who say, do you remember when Bangalore was like this? But the flip side is also being part of a developer. We have certainly grown along with the city. We've gotten so much from the city. We want to not be only getting things from the city. We want to be able to give back in a way that helps the city grow in a manner that is helpful for all. And I think that is one thing that is fundamental to Brigade, just as part of our vision, and also personally to me. I feel like it's very disingenuous to go on complaining about the city when we are, of course, building, but we're building to meet a need that is there. We're building to meet a need of people who are moving here for economic opportunity, but the quality of water, air, traffic, lifestyle that we're all experiencing is less than maybe what we're happy with or what we deserve, considering the kind of work that is happening here and the kind of role that Bangalore plays in the global stage. We deserve more. So what is it that we can do as a developer to make that change, not just for us and our community, but also for the larger ecosystem? I know that if we make certain changes, others can follow suit because they'll see that we're trying to do something about it.
The other gentleman here, Mr. Vishwanath Srikantaiah, he is a luminary in the space of water, urban management, development, urban planning. Vishwanath, welcome.
Thank you. Like Pavitra, I'm also Mysore born. I was born in Mysore, but I'm a Bangalorean now. I've grown up drinking waters from the Kaveri, both in Mysore and in Bangalore. As an individual, as well as a professional, I've been engaged with trying to understand the water situation of the city, its availability, its access, and what we can do to make sure that it is reaching everybody and that it is environmentally benign so that we are able to give the quality of life that Pavitra mentioned, vis-a-vis water, to all of Bangalore.
Thank you for the introduction and welcome to this. I really hope that we'll delve deep, debunk some myths, understand responsibilities, and as a buyer, as a developer, as an architect, as a designer, as a policymaker, what should I do? And I hope we can shed light on all of that. But given that, I have a question for both of you. Parisa, we can start with you. Today, have you taken a bucket bath? Did you turn off your tap when you're brushing teeth? Do you carry a water bottle? Or is it all of the above?
Well, that question I wasn't expecting to answer, but in the interest of being transparent and also truthful, since I want this conversation to sort of be straight from the heart, I did not take a bucket bath, but I took a very short shower. But I always turn off the tap when I brush my teeth, and I think everyone in my household will vouch for me that I scream at them when they leave it open. And I do carry my water bottle everywhere. And that my team will also say, because I'm constantly walking around with a water bottle.
So you're all of the above?
Well,
you're all of the above?
I took a shower. But yeah.
That's okay. Short shower?
A short shower.
We can talk numbers. You already saved 30 liters, so it's okay.
Super. Tomorrow I'll take a bucket bath.
Okay.
I don't know, I did take a half a bucket bath. I switched off the tap while I was brushing my teeth. I don't carry a water bottle with me, and that's the unfortunate part because I drink water wherever I go and pick it up. But I make sure that I treat water with respect and not waste it.
Super. Again, for the record, I took a bucket bath today. I didn't carry my water bottle, but I always turn off tap water. We'll get away from personal choices now, but that's a good segue, right? When we talk about our personal action and all, it's drilled into us that water is a resource, is a challenge in India. There are enough data from WRI which says that India is nearly 60% actually dry, and we're running out of water. And all this media around Bangalore is going to dry up. Bangalore is going to be the first city which will dry up. It'll become the Cape Town of Asia and all that. And so here's the numbers they say, right? The city needs more than 2600 MLD every day, and we get less than 50% from Kaveri, which is a primary source of water, which for a layman on the road says that Bangalore is running out of water.
So we're not really running out of water. Bangalore will get 2,275 million liters per day when the Kaveri fifth stage is implemented. It's getting implemented. We're getting 300 million liters per day from the Kaveri fifth phase. We'll get it to 775 million liters per day. So the number as a civil engineer is 2,275 million liters per day. Now, here's the thing with it. The standards that you talked about in terms of what the water demand for Bangalore is based on old standards. Globally, we are moving towards 100 liters per capita per day kind of a design. Now, if you take 2,275 million liters, which is coming to Bangalore, there's enough and more water for the 14.5 million citizens of Bangalore. The key question is it reaching everybody? Is it reaching all the 14.5 million people? It is not, because the BWSSB is given about 1.1 million connections. And if you say that 10 people are connected to one connection, that's roughly 11 million people who are connected to the BWSSB. Now, the 3.5 million who are not connected to the BWSSB are the ones who face the water shortage. And that's because they're dependent on groundwater, deep borewells, or tanker water, which they buy from tankers, but those tankers themselves source it from groundwater, right? Now, if you look at why those people are suffering, those who are dependent on groundwater, is dominantly because we're not being able to protect our lakes, we're not being able to desilt it and fill it. For example, in last year when the crisis was at its peak, the two largest lakes of Bangalore, Bengaluru and Vartur, were drained. They were drained out for desilting and haven't been filled with water for the last 6 years, which means that they've not been able to recharge the groundwater and the aquifers for 6 years, which means the borewells went dry, and therefore that part of the city faced a tremendous stress for water, as did Whitefield and as did the periphery. So here's the thing with lakes of Bangalore. These lakes are all human built. They're called tanks or keres in Kannada. They were meant for irrigation, typically for growing paddy. But the glorious tanks of Bangalore were not enough to support a population of 1.5 lakhs in the year 1876, 77 and 78, when there were 3 consecutive years of drought. And when the tanks dried up and the paddy fields dried up and there was no crop, there was famine. So from then on, the thinking of the city rulers, those who governed our city, was we should be dependent not just on our lakes, but also from outside water sources. And in 1894, we started implementing the Hesarghatta water supply scheme to bring water from the river Arkavati to ourselves and therefore stabilize ourselves. And that moved to Tippagondonalli, and we moved eventually to the Kaveri. And we pump water from 95 kilometers and 300 meters up, making it one of the costliest waters in Asia, right? But there's a reason for it. What we've now learned is not enough that the Kaveri be the only source of water. We need to build resilience by resurrecting our lakes, harvesting rainwater, and recharging our aquifers.
And given the history and where Bangalore is, today we are about 14.5 million people in the city. By any measure, by 2030, 2031, we're supposed to be a 20 million city. Housing continues to grow. And of course it should. We are getting another 6 more million people into the city. So when that design comes, you acquire a piece of land. Typically, one of the first things you would do is capacity. How much can I do? Marry that with your financial planning, right? When does the consciousness of water come in, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so first of all, I would say we are here to do what you said, provide housing for all of the people who are moving to the city, and they're moving because they find work and they find job opportunities, which is, the most important thing for people to have a livelihood. One of the things we've always held close to us is, yes, we're building, but how do you build such that you improve the quality of life of who is living in our property? So while we do many other things other than residential, I'll just talk about residential. And for a long time, I think we've sort of taken on that quasi role, not just of just providing this cement and, constructed product, but what else can you do to sort of, buffer people from the hassles of living in a massive city that's growing at a massive pace as well. I mean, a few decades ago, I would say, we pioneered the concept of townships,
Right.
integrated townships, which would reduce the need for people to go outside. So sort of work, live, play all within one campus. Multiple of our townships are designed this way. And that was done in order to buffer people from the hassles of just urban sprawl and traffic and so on. Today, I see that evolving. Today, my customers are asking questions like, where am I going to get water from? Or you're selling so much in, these belts of the city. Where is the water supply? Is Kaveri water going to come? Like, this is a very relevant question that my sales team gets every single day. So, we can continue doing the same and saying, yes, we're going to give a connection and one day it will get connected, or there'll be bore well, or we'll be recycling. And yes, we do all of these things. But what more can we do to sort of max out and again buffer our customers to the point that we feel that we are pushing things in the right direction, not just for us. In many cases, we have to almost educate our buyers and tell them, hey, we're going above and beyond, because today you may not have a problem, but in 5-6 years you could. And for that matter, last year, as you were also just mentioning, we had that perfect storm. Like these lakes were drained. There was no water. There was no groundwater. The monsoon hadn't come. There was tanker water disruption. So everything happened at one time. And I remember going to a wedding and there was nowhere to wash your hands after having, a meal. So that was terrifying.
Yeah.
That is something that many of us don't necessarily realize or
Right,
see.
right.
But now I think this year, many people are going to be remembering what happened last year. And as we're on World Water Day, I'm just more mindful that it is a question that is top of mind for every person living in Bangalore, and for that matter in Chennai, in Hyderabad, and in every city across the country. So I think for us, in a selfish way, we have to look at how are we going to mitigate the buyer's need and the residents' need for water without being held to ransom by, the whole ecosystem of tanker.
Right,
so on.
right.
But at the same time, we also have to keep in mind that we still have to keep pushing forward and sometimes do things that maybe they don't see the value today that tomorrow they will appreciate.
Yeah, and where Vishwanath left off, we actually have more water, which is a key part, and we should get into that. You think we can, as a Bangalore, and this would be great to be told today, that Bangalore city will survive and we don't need to be scared by these red flags raised by everybody.
So, yes, if we are mindful, as was being pointed out by Pavitra, and responsible with water use, and we do our best to conserve water and use it wisely, there's more than enough water for the city. One of the things that we should be aware of is that Bangalore depends on 4 dams for its water. 2 directly, the KRS dam in the Kabini, and 2 indirectly, which is the Harangi and the Hemavati, right? So overall, we're pretty much robust with water security. Even last year, when there was such a crisis, there was enough and more water in the KRS to push in the 1,450 million liters till June 15th, when the monsoons are expected. So unlike Cape Town, which is dependent on 1 reservoir, we are dependent on 4 reservoirs. There's another very important point to note. Bangalore takes 11% of Karnataka's allocation of Kaveri waters. Supreme Court has divided water between Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry and Kerala. Karnataka has been allocated to 84.75 TMC feet, of which Bangalore takes 30 TMC feet. And Bangalore supports a population of 40% of Karnataka in the Kaveri basin. Plus, 60% of the GDP of the state. The people who come to occupy the homes that you build, the residences you build, the villas, the apartments you build, the office spaces you build, are contributing to the economic engine, which is India. Bangalore is an Indian and a global city of economic growth. All of it is completely dependent on the waters that we manage safely, right? So therefore, a city is a responsible user of water if it picks up all the wastewater, treats it responsibly, reuses it, or leaves it into the environment in a condition which does not pollute it, right? That opportunity is there for Bangalore, but within Bangalore, that opportunity is there for every development that occurs in the city. And if the development is water responsible, there should be no scarcity.
Actually, that's a great point. There's a recent data that Bangalore has the highest density of STPs, which is a staggering thing for anybody to know, because that itself tells you that we could be water self-sufficient.
Right.
Yet we have a data that 50% of the water is still not treated.
That is wrong. It's improved dramatically. Bangalore treats its wastewater not only for itself and the 186 lakes which are within the city, but actually will fill 1,000 lakes in the hinterland up to 120 kilometers, making it the second largest transfer of treated wastewater for filling lakes in the world, next only to Mexico City. So it's a lot responsible with wastewater.
By the way, Bangalore is a fascinating city because I feel like it's got one of the most conscious citizenry.
Yep.
Yeah.
They are intelligent. It's a matter of giving them the right data, which is what, and there's various degrees of successes and failures. Now, as you rightly said, it's the way we design the townships and the projects, right? Anybody who's been to Japan or Dubai or Singapore, some of these countries are actually drinking treated water. You have some thoughts on how some of your projects are being designed, right? Where you're looking at black and grey water separated, and that is helping in offsetting freshwater demand. How are you looking at it?
So I would start about 6 years ago again. I think when you and I first met, we were designing one of our large townships in Bartur between Whitefield and Sarjapur. And we all know like that's an area where you constantly see water tankers going up and down every day. It's
I live there.
sad, but that is the truth. So in this township, when we started off having a vision for it, one of the interventions that we chose to do in this project was to split our STP and to treat the black and grey water separately so that the residents would have more options when it comes to, being more water sufficient. So from that point in time to where we stand today, we've made a lot of change. We are recently launching a project called Brigade Citrine. It's on Old Madras Road. And we have redone the same system, but also taken it to an extra step where we put in the ultrafiltration units and the reverse osmosis plants to make the grey water portable for certain uses.
Yeah.
And this is what we're excited to see how the residents will pick this up. So while my sales team is out there talking about it, it's interesting to kind of see how attitudes are changing or maybe being a little resistant. And it was in some ways a bit eye-opening to me. I thought everyone would just say, this is fantastic. I'm so glad you guys have done this. But there is resistance on the ground because people are just worried. What does that mean? How exactly is this treatment going to happen? Is it the right quality? So for me, when we were having this discussion, to know that Bangalore has these many treatment plants, to know that the treated water is actually entering lakes, which then provides supply,
water source,
is a huge learning for me. And I think many people should know that too, because the stigma that is associated would just go away then. Because after a point, we're really not going to be in a position to sort of choose to not do these interventions. So I think while it is a very, not the most straightforward approach for in some ways, I think it has to be done. So at least a conversation is started and at least people try to challenge what they might be thinking, rightly or wrongly, about the system. And it creates awareness. And like you were saying, number one is awareness about just what is our water problem in the first place and what can we do about it.
I think post-treated water and reusing that is a critical part, right?
Correct.
And how do we know what is good quality? If I'm a resident, if I'm going to buy a Brigade property, and they say, the salesman will say that, hey, we are water conscious, we're water positive because we're going to treat water and give to me. How do I know what is good there?
So one of the things is to become water literate, as Pavitra was pointing out critically. And we need to build that water literacy together as a joint project between developers, builders, and people who move into the residents, right? But there are enough and more examples to tell us that treated wastewater or treated used water, as it's called, can easily be used for non-potable purpose. So you can flush your toilet, use it for landscaping, wash your cars. Also, to meet environmental needs of landscaping, which is done correctly, which is the right kind of plants that are planted. And if this treated used water is used there, what it does is it increases soil moisture, brings down the temperature in the whole development, and therefore reduces your energy demand. It recharges the aquifer, so therefore the groundwater that you use becomes much more plentiful. And in terms of treatment, what you have to look out for is something called BIS 10500 drinking water standards. If the water which is treated from the RO plant or the ultrafiltration plant meets BIS 10500 standards, it's absolutely safe for you to use even for drinking, let alone contact. It's the yuck factor and the psychological factor that prevents us. What we need to do is to make sure that we co-create the solutions in which there is trust built, and those who are users or consumers are constantly made aware of what the water quality should be and what it actually is. So display boards which tell you what is the quality of the treated wastewater will help build confidence and slowly win over people. And it's a game that is a long game, and it has to be played with patience and perseverance.
So the water sources are three-fold. There is treated water, there's rainwater. Rainwater plays a critical role in this, right? How much of this can actually, for Bangalore, come from rainwater?
So if you design appropriately, in an average year of rain, 1 hectare of land which you develop gets 1 crore liters of rainwater falling on it, right? Easily 50% of it can be put to productive use. You can harvest it from the rooftop, you can harvest it from paved areas, and you can allow it to make up for soil moisture in the unpaved areas.
Right.
So 3 grades of water and 3 grades of catchment, and you can store it. For the city as a whole, there are 3 pipes and 4 stores, is what I call it. The 3 pipes are pipe water from the Kaveri, rainwater, which is another pipe source, and the third one is treated reused water because it comes to you as a source. There are 4 stores, and the stores are, you could have your sump tank or rain barrel or over a tank, which is a solid source. The second is soil moisture, which we often underestimate. The third is aquifer, which is below the ground. And the fourth is surface water, like ponds, wetlands, lakes, and streams, right? So these 4 stores. If we optimize these 3 taps and 4 stores, then we have enough and more for the needs of an urban development. And an urban development has the advantage that most of its water is non-consumptive, therefore is available for reuse and recycling, unlike, let's say, agricultural use where water is evaporated.
Right.
So we must take advantages of the nature of development, not feel guilty about urbanizing, design appropriately, and then use water abundantly, not with a scarcity mentality, but with respect.
So that is a perfect segue actually. I was going to get into responsibility. The role of a developer is very critical. Bangalore is growing, is continuing to grow. We will become the 3rd largest populated city in the country. Given that, and thanks, Vishwanath has confirmed that we will not have water issue. But I think for that to happen, a huge responsibility falls on developers.
Well, first of all, it was a total shocker for me that we actually have enough water, even saw the 20 million people we're expected to have in our city. But I hope one thing, even though this is a great piece of information to know, I don't want the community at large to sort of be casual about it and now feel like we don't need to do all of the interventions that are required to get there.
Right.
Because that could very quickly change. And anyway, it is not sufficient to meet everybody's needs the way we are functioning today, right? So there's so much more that has to happen on that front.
By the way, just to you, for your data, and I don't know, I'm sure you know this. So we did a study in Whitefield in 2016-17 time about 110 communities. The average consumption of water per capita is about 180 liters LPCD.
Right.
So consciousness in water those days was not very high, in fact pretty bad. Just for everybody again, is if 135 liters is what NBC standard has given, 180 is terrible. In the communities is 210, 220. The average at Brigade, if I'm not wrong, is about 152, which is better. It's a little higher with the buffer. So I think so responsibility is critical. Responsibility is divided in multiple, but let's focus from a developer right now.
Yeah. So if I'll start with that. Just the knowledge of what are people actually consuming today, because that's one of the multi-pronged approaches that we've taken, is water metering. And we started doing this from our projects that were getting constructed and designed in 2018 and now being delivered with water meters. And while that has its own challenges, as something new that's coming into the way people are living in their communities, the one thing it does is create awareness, and the one thing it does is create responsibility, and therefore this knowledge that you're paying more or less based on how much water you're consuming. Otherwise, typically it's the same water bill divided equally, regardless of how many members you have in one apartment. If there's a single person or there's a house full of 6 people or
You're
more,
paying the same amount.
you're paying the same amount,
was a
which isn't
terrible way,
fair. And also you're not. It doesn't incentivize anyone to save water. And I think, whether we consciously do it or not, if you're constantly seeing how much is being used every day, or even aware that, there's a tap that's leaking, you'll know that from just looking at your app where it's telling you about water metering and usage. That was one underpinning, because you can't manage what you don't measure. That's a very corporate way of looking at it, but it's still true on so many levels. So if you don't know how much you're using, you're not going to have any knowledge as to even how much you should
engineer's
save.
way also. You want to
That's
measure
true. That's true.
numbers.
So that was one thing. And if I kind of work backwards through that cycle, definitely in the design stage, we're doing the max of what we can. And that is more than what is required per the design guidelines and the approval guidelines that we have, whether it is NBC or whatever it may be, which is National Building Code. We are building, larger rainwater sumps than what is required. We are putting in more features like the ultrafiltration and reverse osmosis plant, and also the triple plumbing system. That's not required as far as the government is concerned, but that's something we're doing as a forward-looking measure. So that's on the design standpoint. But even in the construction angle, we do predominantly use treated water for construction. And as we all know, construction is one of those activities that is, leading to so many different changes to our environment as well. So, I can't run away from the fact that I'm in that business, but what can I do to mitigate at least? So on the water front, we are using treated water as much as possible for construction itself. So with these three things, I would say we can broadly categorize what we're trying to do from a responsible manner. And, that's the way in which we approach things. But I think recognizing that we also play a role in the sense that other developers will see, oh, okay, they can do it, which means it's possible. And also the whole reason why we're talking so much about citrine is that the consumer understands what they're buying into.
Right.
And whether it matters to them or not, it's creating a conversation.
Yeah.
They may or may not buy into the project, but it's creating a conversation and awareness, and we're getting questions, and we're also being more informed in terms of how we can do this better, whether it's part of net zero, whether it's just part of having a more water responsible approach. In citrine, we are able to say that my owner or resident there is or the community there will be around 66% water sufficient. That number can always increase, and it's always tough to put numbers around these things as well, because it depends on how the community is going to operate and live. But it's a starting point. So
no, but it's a great thing, right? Because if you are able to put a number saying 66% self-sufficient, there's a base case anyway built at design stage with National Building Code standards, the size of sumps from rainwater, treated water. You actually are talking about tangible value if I'm a buyer. If I'm buying it, that means then I know that there'll be lesser tankers, potentially no tankers, who knows. And that means my maintenance cost will eventually come down. So I think this is very critical, right?
I just want to come into that a bit. The sales discussion and the living discussion are two very different things, separated by maybe 3 to 4 years construction time frame. So I know today people may not care when they're buying, or they may think it's just marketing. But when you're living in a place, it's just going to become very real.
Right.
And at that point in time, you're going to be happy that you thought about it, or even if you didn't attach so much value then, it's going to show you value. One, in just terms of your mental, peace of mind, or second, even in the way you're operating your community, it should save you money, many of the measures that we're putting in.
So let me just add just one sentence, because you put it also nicely. I see in the water management sector, what we say is the first thing to focus on is demand management.
Right.
And you're doing demand management through metering, through pricing, hopefully, whenever it goes to the residents association, and water efficient systems, right? And the 3 plumbing systems. The second is supply augmentation and circularity. So you augment supply through rainwater harvesting and circularity by reusing treated wastewater. And the third very important component is consumer and community awareness. When all these 3 fit together in a particular development, the 66% benchmark that you mentioned would become the floor, and very easily there would be a lot of community pride as and when they occupy and they become aware of what they already have as part of design and what they have as a system of running. They can cross 100%. And that community pride will be the one which will drive water responsible behavior throughout, right? So it's tough in the initial stage for marketing and selling, but after occupation, I think the winning point will be when the community feels that they are part of the solution and not part of the problem.
And gamification is possible now that data is there. See, the importance of smart meters also is very critical.
Correct.
Earlier we didn't have data. Earlier we had no way to measure. So we had this common meters and everybody paying the same amount. Now we have enough intelligence technology to come in to break, and then there are so many success stories of gamification bringing down overall community consumption.
Truly.
And the stats, I mean, the technology being used now, even for Citrine and Utopia, is the conservative number they have is 7% water demand reduction.
So I just want to push that on from the gamification front also. So there's a lot of people who have to learn to how to design better, to manage water better, right? One of the thing is to design landscapes better, which are water efficient, which are in tune with the nature that is there. Second is to design with the watershed, right? The streams that flow through the land, how are they protected? And the third is to understand the aquifers below the ground and see how we can design better with those aquifers. So are you folks doing those three things?
Yeah, to be frank, I think we are doing on the surface. Naturally, you have to respect where the nalas are going or where the Rajkaluves are going.
Yes.
But on the aquifers, I think there's a lot more to learn. We're engaging with people who can give us information about it. But really, do we fully understand how to work around that? I'm not going to say that we're 100% there yet, but at least we're aware that's something which can be done, and it's taking things to the next level. So again, it's a work in progress,
Right.
and I think that has to be part of it.
Right.
You can't not do something because you don't know what the outcome is going to be, because the downside of not doing anything is really terrible. And I want to also say that today we all take STPs as a normal course or as a normal fixture in a community. But, a few years ago, that wasn't the case. It wasn't mandated.
This was not meant.
And there was a property that we, delivered where we put in an STP and it wasn't mandated and the residents hated it. They said, we don't want to use it.
Yeah.
Why are you making us do
Right.
this? And they didn't want to commission it. We were just very early in that game and eventually it will reach there. So there is a lot of worry and, fear about taking certain risks.
Right.
But once it catches on, I think it'll become more of a movement. But it's important for it to actually begin. So I think that's where we're just trying to...
But that's what I want to push you a little more on. From that responsibility word itself, right? You did not just start. This is not like I'm having a butterfly garden. Citrine becoming a net zero project, carbon-wise and water-wise, these numbers, they not come out of thin air. This is not just another marketing gamut, right? This you care deeply. As a leading developer, what made you go in that direction? And why is this such an important thing for you?
I would say even before, as a developer, just as somebody who loves Bangalore and who has grown up here, this can't go on like this.
Right.
Like we can't sit and rue the day without doing anything.
Right.
So net zero, sustainability, these are all words and frameworks, but they more or less tie to the same thing, which is, are you responsibly trying to grow? I mean, growth is going to happen. See, whether we like it or not, whether you don't like one developer versus the other, somebody else will come there and do it. Now, the choice is to maybe support growth by people who seem to care or try to put in those kinds of efforts to do that. I care because one, I don't see how you can continue to, thrive as a business if you're trying to be in an environment that is not helpful to the end consumer. So Bangalore has to grow. All of our Indian cities have to grow.
Right.
So how we can't say let's stop growth here and go find another city to do it in. Like that's an incredibly tough thing to do, and it doesn't make sense.
Interstellar route.
Yeah.
You go to the moon and Saturn.
Right. So why go to Mars? I'm already here. So I may as well figure out how to do it better here. So that's the fundamental point of wanting to do this. And, choosing net zero versus some other goal, that's just, what we ended up doing after having looked at all the various options that we have. Is it the right way? I really don't know. Like our goal is going to take some years. It is anyway going to create a lot of changes on ground that will make a huge difference. At least we will start measuring what we're doing, and that will create awareness, and that will inform our future, ways of constructing.
I'm going to shift gears a little. We've spoken from developer, we've spoken from some level of design, what is needed. We also spoke about the idea that numbers tell us that we have opportunity to not just survive, to thrive. There are other key stakeholders in this whole industry, right? There's a buyer, there's a policymaker, there are also investors, etc. But let's focus on these other two, because I believe in the work I do also that a key stakeholder is a buyer. A buyer has to play his or her role in making this happen. What is the responsibility of a buyer?
The buyer has to become aware that the more independent development is, the more reliable and more in control they are of their own water sources, right? So buyers would also now need to step up to the plate to demand more from the developer. What you're seeing here is the developer is delivering more than what the buyer is expecting, right? You have to change that game around, and a wise buyer and a wise citizen will actually, as a bare minimum, ask for all whatever Brigade is being doing. So that will be an ideal story.
Right.
However, at the next level, what the developers should do is to look beyond their community and look at placing themselves in the watershed that they occupy, that the development occupies. And if possible, through either the CSR route or through other routes, make sure that they adopt the common water resource which is there at the watershed, the tank or the lake which is there, is a first cut, right? Because if you take care of the tank, it takes care of the entire area, including your own development. So therefore, that's something that one would urge you to take a look at. The second, you already mentioned that aquifers are crucial, but you're developing an understanding of it. What's happened is, you have the luxury of doing that understanding, whereas a consumer will only look at it as a borewell. And as you were pointing out, there are disputes about borewells. Do I own this borewell or not? What people forget is the borewell is merely a straw, and the coconut from which the straw is drawn is the bigger picture.
And a common resource.
Absolutely. And so therefore, understanding the aquifer is critical for us to manage groundwater. And just as an aside, India is the world's largest user of groundwater. We use more groundwater than USA and China combined, which are number 2 and number 3. And in the city of Bangalore alone, there may be more than 6 lakh borewells, and we are drawing 800 million liters per day. And some of the deepest borewells in India are in Bangalore city, especially in the periphery of the city. And some of the most contaminated water in terms of salinity is also in Bangalore city. So therefore, our understanding of the aquifer, replenishing the aquifer, bringing back the water table to what we had as dug wells would be fantastic to do. And I know that in some of your properties, you protected the ancient dug wells. You made sure that these sources of water are also part of our heritage of water, and the children learn from it. And eventually, as a goal, if we get water in those wells, it shows us the success that we have done with water management. So all these symbols, artifacts, culture, community property as a tank, all these are things that we can work on in the future along with the consumer, so that we build this abundant Bangalore through design.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, because it takes the whole question of, is this just a individual decision for a buyer to the community at large and or to society at large? And if you can make it like a combined objective, which is what this would do. If you're saying, hey, if we're adopting these lakes that are in the area, this is what it's going to do. And then therefore, what you're doing within your community, trying to maximize recycling and so on, is also helping all of those things. I think that's the best way to go forward.
Right.
So while we have adopted lakes and done it as CSR, I think to make that an underpinning of the overall water strategy itself is totally doable,
Right.
and it is something we're going to be doing.
Right.
We are in the process.
From your ESG roadmap point of view,
Yes.
you are going to work on that.
Yes. So in our roadmap, we've also said that we will be water sufficient by 2030.
Yes. Right.
Water positive by 2030 as an organization, which means it can't just be within our own community, within our own buildings, but also outside.
Yeah, and so we spoke about the responsibility of the buyer, right? And we'll do questions on that. Policy.
So one of the things with policy and institutions is that we don't have what's called an integrated urban water management institution, right? So in our cities, all across urban India, pipe water supply is with one institution, lakes are with another institution, groundwater is with another institution, and streams and rivers are with another institution. I think together we'll have to build the right institutions for our cities to become sustainable. And I think as developers and builders, we have the influence to have dialogues with our institutions to make them well-rounded. I'll give you one example. The Bangalore Water Supply and Storage Board, for example, does not have a single hydrogeologist. So for that institution, groundwater does not exist, literally, because we don't have the eyes to be able to see it. Not their fault, because that's the way they were constructed in 1964. Now in the 21st century, we need well-rounded institutions. And what policy should do is to build well-rounded institutions which are capable of taking the responsibility for a growing urban India, right? And that's where I think the developers and builders should be in dialogue, because it's crucial for both and the consumer to get these livable cities that we get. It's absolutely essential to be building the right institutions.
Bureau of Water Efficiency. We have Bureau of Energy Efficiency. You heard it here first. We're going to create Bureau of Water Efficiency.
So Bureau of Water Efficiency is on the anvil. But what cities need are integrated urban water management.
Right.
And if you get that, then you have circularity and you are able to do things a lot better.
So I'd say again, the positive is that Bangalore has a very conscious group of citizens.
Right.
It must be the most conscious city in the country. But it is also, I think, the responsibility of people at large who benefit from being in Bangalore to make sure this conversation happens. Yes, it is about developers. Yes, it is about people who live here. But also the hundreds of business owners who run a business here and who need to be here and get the best talent here. We cannot have the brand of the city be just continuing in this way. We have to show that, hey, we are doing something more about it, and then creating that dialogue with policymakers to show that this change is required today, because we are all here for the long term. Policymakers, there is change when, over the course of time. So we need that continual sort of push to create that kind of policy.
That's it. I have a question. Did you know thing for you both? BWS is we supplying water. Did you know that for a liter of water supplied to us, we pay less than 25% of the cost actually?
I'll tell you the number. It takes 95 rupees to get 1,000 liters of water to the city.
Right.
We pay 7 rupees per kiloliter.
There you go. So question is it right or wrong?
So here's the thing with water. If you return it back to nature in the same quantity and quality at which we appropriated it, there's no shortage of water.
Right.
And that has a price. And how do you recover that price of water for the institution to be able to deliver the service is the biggest challenge. Because water is a human right. Everybody should have equal access to water irrespective of their capacity to fly. But beyond a certain volume, it becomes an economic good where you have to charge for water. And that's a deeper political question. Highest of ironies, the poor pay the highest price for water because they go to the RO plant and pay 5 rupees for 20 liters, which means they pay 250 rupees 1,000 liters. Whereas the richest, to get water in their own flats, they pay 22 rupees a kiloliter. And in my house, where I get water from the BWSSB, I pay 7 rupees for a kiloliter, 1,000 liters. Imagine. We have to set right the system somewhere, but the beginning can be done within communities, which can then manage water financially sustainably. That will be a great step forward. We have the opportunity to marry the past and the future, and this is not only a city with the past, which is notable, but also this is a space for science, technology, and education. We have some of the most cutting-edge scientists and educational institutions here. So one of the ways that we can deal with it is to protect the artifacts of the past, like the lakes and wells, which are relevant today, but marry them with state-of-the-art water treatment plants so that we get into the circular loop. The wastewater treatment plants that you mentioned, this is the city with the maximum number of wastewater treatment plants. Now, that treated wastewater, in many of the BWSSB plants, you can actually drink straight from the STP. That's been possible thanks to technology and interventions by the institution, right?
So I can go to the government's STP and drink the water which comes out.
Well, actually, I've drunk it from the Jakkur STP. I know that the Kaban Park STP can be drunk from. The Brijpavati Valley has one where you can drink from the STP. No, not encouraged. But the quality of treatment is such that it meets those standards. And science has brought that standard to it. And with that treated wastewater, you can revive the old lakes, which are more than 1,200 years old. So it's a flourishing ecological entity, recharges the groundwater, and then from the groundwater you pick it up and complete the circularity of water. So the past and the future can talk in the present.
So let's get philosophical for a second, right? I think over time we built apathy towards climate change in general, not just water as a problem. But why should we care? It's very important to understand why should we care? What is your
When you say climate change, it's a very charged topic today.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who don't care.
right?
But there's a lot of people who do. And I think my audience is people who do care.
Bangalore is a city like that.
And I think you care because there are some things that never change. I think sometimes we're so focused on what is going to change, but some things never change. And what never changes? You want a safe and healthy place to have a family and, to move forward in life. So whatever we can do that kind of ensures that, we should be doing that. So to me, this is just one small step in it, in the larger sort of environment in which, we have to make sure that we're taking the right decisions for the future.
So as Jane Goodall says, only if we care will we act, only if we act will we overcome.
Right.
The problems of climate change is about carbon in the atmosphere, but its impact is on water. It's directly water that's going to be affected as a hydrological cycle everywhere. So if we care, we will act. If we act, we will overcome. But we have to act with informed knowledge, identifying the problem correctly and moving in the right solution.
I think that's a wonderfully put. And I want to say this, that there are a few things we've discussed which were aha moments for me also here, right? Being part of urban sustainability challenges, even I did not know some of these things. Working in the space and working with like-minded and right-minded people is very critical, and holistic thinking is very important. The key thing for all of us to take away is, do you want to be part of the problem or do you want to be part of the solution? I think we have enough people on this table today who are part of the solution. Rest of you come join and make it something we all work together and make Bangalore water positive. Thank you both of you for making it happen.